teachers and what they can do to people.
Yeah, I'm going to sort of end my little part with this, and I'm going to share a story from, I don't know if hopefully you've read the book. Barry Schwartz from Swarthmore wrote a book called Practical Wisdom. And the question is, what do all great teachers have? They have practical wisdom. They know how to deal with a situation that's new and novel, and they learn how to do it. And that can only be learned through experience. It can't be learned in a 5-week summer training session. Anyway, that's my little TFA statement. So I'm just going to relay the story that he tells about Aristotle. Aristotle was very interested in and impressed in how the craftsmen around him would improvise novel situations to novel problems, just like teachers. Problems that they hadn't anticipated. So one example is, he sees these stonemasons on a Greek island, and they need to measure out some round columns. So when you think about it, the problem is it's really hard to measure out round columns using a straight ruler or measure. So they fashioned a novel solution to the problem. They created a ruler that bends. What we would call these days a tape measure. A flexible rule, a rule that bends. And Aristotle said, ha! I'm not sure how he said that in Greek, but ha! They appreciated that sometimes to design rounded columns, you had to bend the rule. And Aristotle said often, in dealing with other people, you have to bend the rules. He bent the rules with those little test bubbles that he played around with. So that's another lesson we can learn from my young friend here. So Keel and I represent teacher-student, young and old, even short and tall. But we're here, and we purposely did this way to show you how students and teachers collaboratively, collectively, can work together to make a point and make change, and to teach. So I think we are, the two of us, and all of us here, are what education looks like. Now, as good teachers do, I leave the last word to the student.
Thank you so much.
You hear that? Oh, you heard. So I think I just want to end with a few things. The first, just reiterating what I just said, we have to make this a movement, not just a moment in time. We have to move it from just another soundbite in the media and another headline in the paper to one that is consistent week after week after week. We have to look back to the great movements of our time, the civil rights, women's rights, gay rights. This is how movements begin. It starts with just a few people saying enough is enough, that we can't just continue with the status quo any longer. It begins with people just saying that we need to rise up, we need to rebel in every way possible, and that's what we need today. These are schools that are closing, teachers that are being unpaid, and students that just don't have access to basic resources. This is essentially a war on public schools, a war on children, and a war on teachers. And it's a war that we must fight, really, in the streets. I think it's going to take civil disobedience. It's going to take people just sitting in streets and not getting up even when getting arrested. It's going to take people just more talking and more dialogue and more conversation. You know, I think the really prime example of this is what all the students were doing, a number of students were doing last night in the basement of a church. We were just talking about how we can come together, unite over high stakes testing. So I think movements begin in those basements of churches. It begins in those school buildings. It begins in those informal settings. And that's when you start. You start with those one voice in a room, and then you make it the entire room. And it goes on and on and on. I think one really great quote I just want to end with, what Sugata Mitra once said: if the world belongs to our children, why don't we just give it to them? Thank you.